Welcome to 10 Minutes in the Text. We're diving in to 1 Kings 19, 11 through 13, and then Matthew chapter 14, verses 24 through 33. So let's take a look at where we are. So we have Elijah coming up and out of Israel, running for his life, and he hides and goes to find the Lord, and this is what happens. And he said, "Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord." So he here is going to be the Lord. He's telling Elijah, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. We've been experiencing some heavy winds lately, so how would this feel? But, look here, the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But what? The Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord what? Again, was not in the fire. But what happens next? And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, what did he do? He wrapped his face in his cloak. Now this comes back to gazing on God. If you go back and look how what happened to Moses, it's said that when he beheld the Lord, his face then shone the glory. So Elijah here is protecting himself. And he went out and stood there at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" So this passage is important because we have what? First we have a strong wind. Then we have an earthquake. Then we have fire. But what does God come in? A low whisper. There's a lot going on there, but God shows up in the low whisper. What about here in Matthew? When evening came, he was there alone, so Jesus. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, so the disciples had taken this boat to cross, beaten by the waves, and the wind was against them. So here they are. They're in a storm. All right, so the waves and the wind show us they're in a storm. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. Now, fourth watch, I should know what this is, but I'm going to go ahead and mark this as pink because I don't remember and I don't want to say for sure. So I just want to know what time is this. So I'm going to mark that in that kind of pinkish purple to remember to look and see what time is this. It's the depth of the night, but I want to know for sure. And he came to them walking on the sea. So here Jesus, how does he come walking on the sea? As you would, right? I'm just going to walk on the sea. When the disciples saw him on the sea, they were terrified. And what did they think? It's a ghost. Now, I think sometimes we read that and go, "Oh, you foolish disciples." But how many times has your mind played tricks on you and you think, "Oh, it's this thing"? And what did they do? They cried out in fear. But when? Immediately, Jesus spoke to them. And he says, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Classic. When people encounter God or his messengers, do not be afraid. And Peter answered him. Peter, being bold, says, "Lord, if it is you," now look, he's already questioning this, right? He's looking and going, "Oh, maybe it is a ghost. Command me to come out to you on the water." So this is strange because, okay, Peter's doing this, but Peter's still questioning it's Jesus. He's challenging here. What does he say? Come. So what does Peter do? He got out of the boat. That's a big deal. That's pretty cool that Peter would be so ready. He steps out of the boat into the waves, thinking he'll be okay. And what does he do? He walks on the water just like Jesus. When he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." So lots happening here. What happens first? All right, he sees the wind. What does the wind do? It makes him afraid. And he begins to sink. So he cries out, "Lord, save me." Now, what happens here again? Jesus, when? Immediately reaches out his hand and took hold of him. Now, who reaches out? Jesus. Jesus reaches out his hand and took hold of him, saying, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Oh, this is something we're going to sit in this week. Why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, This is big. This is huge that they would say this. Truly, you are the Son of God. there's a movement here that's happening, which is miracle, right? He walks on water. Fear. Let's put an A in there. Fear. Doubt. Faith. So, and maybe I don't want to make that faith. What I want to make that is, I want to make that Jesus. So we see the miracle, Jesus walks on the water. We see their fear. Is this a ghost? Is it not? Then Peter steps out. Okay, but there's doubt. And what happens? Jesus steps into it. And then that leads here to the confession. Truly, you are the Son of God. I'm excited. Our Lent theme this week is Lent in the noise. How do we cut through it? How do we see what Jesus is doing in the midst of it? I look forward to spending that time with you this week.